Was good with it. Was good with it, fam. Welcome to the Al Jaheez podcast. Rocking with your boy Gullah Jabiri in the building. What's up with it, y'all? Right on, rocking with me, man. Tonight we're gonna be discussing West African hunter gatherers. I said I was gonna be discussing it last time. I did my show on hold on, get some feedback. I did my show on the door. Welcome to the Al. Hold on, just a minute. Here we go. Yeah, we back. We back on. Yeah, though, fam. Tonight I'm gonna be discussing West African hunter gatherers. Last time I was on air, we were talking about Dartecha culture, and I was discussing some of the proto-Mende cultures that help form the Techa culture, and I also mentioned that there were also people that were there prior proto Niger Congo or proto Mende people coming in that particular area, and you had different West African hunter gatherers, sprinkled all around Western Africa before Niger Congo people migrated into those regions somewhere around 12,000 years ago. And they've been there at least 30,000 years ago. We're gonna discuss that, and basically also too. Some people call them West African pygmies. I don't like the term pygmies, kind of derogatory term, but they were also would have been these West African hunter gatherers, but have been also a relation to the Central Batwa. So you can call it the Batwa people or the Central African pygmies or Batwa people or forest people that was split off. Some stayed within the Congo, deep forest regions, and some, migrated within into like the coastal rainforest regions, and even all the way up into Mali and the Niger River at some points, intermixing with intermixing with some of the incoming Niger Congo people during the Heliocene period. Let me share. Hold on. Let me share my. Let me share some of my links. What's up with it? What's up with it, Mr. Metro? Peace, peace. Right on for rocking with me up. Hold on. Give me a second, y'all. I'm gonna post up some of my links. Yeah, I'm back, y'all. We finna get to this research. This channel, where you could have, like on my channel, this is where you could have the really high level conversations about science, history, a little bit of politics, social, a little bit on, politics, not so much on politics, but a little bit on politics. I can get into that stuff too, because it is part of history, especially political history. It all plays a part in history and anthropology too. Studying those particular subjects to put all the things together to figure out the truth or the facts of history. But tonight I'm gonna go ahead and get it to it. I'm gonna show my page. But first I'm gonna get off don't put my cash app in the chat too. African world history, peace, brother, peace. Put my cash app in a link. Anybody to show some love, till this channel can grow some more. So yeah, I'm trying to get monetized and do some more things, maybe some animations, do some more slides and things of that nature. Now I'm just getting straight to the facts. We'll get straight to it. No punches, kind of a building show. Later on, I could have, might have people come on, ask questions, things of that nature. Okay. My cash up in the link real quick. All right, there we go. Let's get into it. I'm not gonna start off with Wiki tonight. I am gonna get into the Wiki page of the West African Hunter Gatherers, but tonight I'm gonna go straight into one of the journals, and it is a Cambridge source that I have from Christopher Ehret. He kind of goes into the migration of these West African hunter gatherers. I'm kind of giving you an intro of their origins and how they even got to West Africa. And don't be mistaken, these will not be your Niger Congo speaking population. These will be the people, some of the late Stone Age people who migrated into West Africa sometime around 30,000 years ago. And they intermixed with some mixture archaic humans that was already there before they even got there. It's been there since the early Paleocene, Paleolithic time periods. And even them people, they would have been a mix. They would have been a mixture of even earlier archaic humans, like ghost populations that we always talk about, and also the Tyrian culture. And the Tyrian culture would have been Tyrian culture would have stretched all the way to North Africa. And these would have been early, early modern humans, branching off from populations from East Africa, even before the Khoisan branched off from East African populations. And these would have been really, really ancient humans. They would have been quite archaic. It still would have been other humans more archaic than them, but they were modern humans, but they still had somewhat archaic affinities and features. It was just a little bit more derived than other archaic humans like Jebel Jahaba, Morocco. The Tyrians would have been a little bit more derived people than them. They wouldn't have been as archaic as them particular human beings. And let me get into let me share my screen with y'all. Oh yeah, I got some good sources too. Just a minute. There we go. Source right here. Okay. Okay, here we go. All right. I'm getting into this is from Cambridge. This is Christopher Ehret's article and not article, but his journal in Cambridge. 40. This is called A History of Africa. 48,000. Let me make sure. Here we go. It's called Africa from 48,000 to 9,500 BCE. And this kind of covers that particular time period in between. And I'm gonna show you a particular important map that's gonna kind of help with everything, like kind of give you guys a vision, a viewpoint of what I'm talking about. All right. It says Central and West Africa, 48,000 and 22,000 BCE. Ooh, so. Off my screen. Hold on, y'all. There we go. Here we go. We're back in action. Go back down. Okay. Okay, the spread, okay, Central and West Africa, 48,000 to 22,000 BCE. The spread of modern humans with the later Stone Age industry westward from East Africa probably began soon after 48,000 BCE as well. The earliest later Stone Age level from Matupi Cave in Atiri region, and Atiri region is like it's near the Congo region, like the eastern area of the Congo, somewhere like around Uganda, those regions. Ever heard of Atiri Forest? Just as a side note. Well, here it say in northeastern Congo Basin, characterized among other things by true microliths, small notch points for hafting and barring dates to before 42,500 BCE, although just how much earlier is uncertain. By around 30,000 BCE, fully modern humans from a similar later Stone Age technology had reached the other side of the Congo Basin. The earliest occurrence as yet identified from those areas as at Shumlaka Rock Shelter in Western Cameroon. In that Shumlaka area, y'all, that would have been like at a point where some of these, the ancestors, some of these West African hunter-gatherers would have lived around, before spreading even more northern. These would have been, this would have been a southern route from East Africa going into going through the Congo area and into West Africa. And these would have been, in these late Stone Age populations would have been the late Stone Age ancestors of the modern day Twa people, or quote unquote pygmy, what people wrongly would call, wrongly or mistakenly call them pygmy. Yeah, modern West Africa didn't exist yet, but I'm gonna get into that. I'm gonna get into when the Niger Congo populations, start migrating and interacting with some of these West African hunter-gatherer populations. Because these West African hunter-gatherer populations too, they would have been a mixture as well. Like I said, they themselves would have been mixed with going into West Africa. They would have ran into different archaic humans or archaic human hybrids who were mixed with an early modern humans, like the Tyrian population. The Tyrian population would have been all throughout North Africa. I'm gonna show a reconstruction of a Tyrian man as well later. And they also would have been related to the Skahul and the Squahul cave in the Levant area, and some of the Nubian complexes that they found all throughout Arabia. Even though of course, they're not really Nubian. They just call them Nubian because they found some of those same artifacts in the Nubian area as well, like a long time, like so somewhere at least 100,000 to 60,000 years ago. That's when the Tyrian population, would live. They probably would have had some type of connection with the Omo 1 and Omo 2 man of East Africa as well. They would have spread all across West Africa at a time period, in a more ancient Paleo time period. We can get back into the source. Let's say by around 30,000 BCE, fully modern human with similar later Stone Age technology had reached the other side of Congo Basin. The earliest occurrence as yet identified from those areas as at Shumlaka rock shelter in western Cameroon. To the south of Cameroon, the Congo Basin, just as in southern Africa, archaic humans with Middle Stone Age technologies did not simply disappear. Before the advance of fully modern later Stone Age people, but persisted for thousands of years in southern Cameroon and Equatorial Guinea, for example. Late version of Middle Stone Age Lupinban tradition survived down to the beginning of the last glacial maximum. And that's right before the Haliocene period, like right before the Neolithic Revolution. In those areas, fully modern later Stone Age peoples finally replaced them, probably only as the climate transitions of glacial maximum took hold. In Eastern Congo Basin as well, a late Lupinban population may have existed down even into the glacial maximum. And remember the Lupinban culture would have been an archaic, mixed archaic Tyrian type culture. Because a lot of the Tyrians, I'm gonna have a whole show about the Tyrians too one day. With the Tyrians, they would have been in North Africa, but at a point in time, as the desert, would have become more. The Sahara area became more desertous, and this a whole other time. The Sahara was green and all that, and became a desert. This way before the Haliocene period. This at a more ancient time. They would have migrated south and then mixed with some archaic humans that was already in West and Central Africa. These Tyrian populations. And these two people, these wouldn't have been the Niger Congo people either. This was way back. And they say, but further west in Africa, beyond the mountains that mark the western boundary of modern day country of Cameroon, the spread of later Stone Age technology seemingly came entirely to a halt. West Africa, from Nigeria to Mali and Senegal, for reasons not understood, remained a place of solely of Middle Stone Age industries, not just as late as 22,000 BCE, but down through the last glacial maximum. The late spread of later Stone Age industries may have reached the mountains of Western Cameroon by 30,000 BCE, but there the advance of fully modern humans halted for another 18,000 years. So what they're saying is, let me show y'all something. Go to the map. This is the map of 48,000 to 30,000 BCE. And you see the Tyrian, these are the Tyrian cultures I was talking about. These are Tyrian people all throughout North Africa. It's like 40 to 48,000 years ago. You know what I'm saying? All going out to 30,000 at least. And this little dotted lines right here, this is like where more modern humans, where they were bubbling at, the diversity of different the early modern humans was in these ranged in this region. This what these dotted lines at. The Tyrian cultures would have spread from these cultures first. These are early modern humans. Like they still would have they would still would have been slightly or a bit archaic. Not as archaic as the Jebel Jahud that we'll find here in Morocco. It was more archaic. Jebel Jahud would have been more related to the Lupiban people. Lupiban people had a different range. You know what I'm saying? Of course, they were found here, like here in Central Western Africa. You know what I'm saying? Here, you see the Lupiban here. See my cursor at? But some of their relatives and relations, people that they're spread and people they're related to, like the Jebel Jahud people that would have been up here in Morocco would have spread all the way up here at the time, and then would have got overlapped, and they would have been through a bottleneck, or when it died out in this region, and the Tyrian cultures came in and dominated this area. And then when this region became desertous, the Tyrians migrated down here in the mix with these Lupiban cultures around here. And then, like we were saying, like around 42,000 years ago, you would have started having late Stone Age cultures. And these late Stone Age people would have been related to like the Hadza, the ants and ancestors of the Nilotic cultures, and some of the ancestors of the Khoisan, before they branched, they was branching off in these regions. And with a particular group, which was the ancestors that would have became the ancestors of the modern day pygmies, they wouldn't have been they wouldn't have been necessarily short stature at this time period either. They became short stature because of the adapting to areas and dense forests, and having a particular vitamin D level in those forests, because you're not getting a lot of you're getting not a lot of radiation in those dense forests like you would in savanna regions. So that calcium intake, would have allowed their bodies to be less more short stature. Because they're not dwarfs. Pygmy, I want to take the term pygmy, but the Twa, the Batwa people, which I'm generally speaking, when I say Batwa, also I'm being very general, but these different Central and West African hunter-gatherers who would have spread through this southern route right here. I'm showing these arrows right here to spread from this southern route first into Matupi, the Matupi cave regions. You can also find artists this is like around Uganda, I think like around the Uganda area, if I'm not mistaken. Rwanda, Uganda, around that region. They would have been around here. And these would have been ancestors like the East, East African Twa people. Eventually. But also they would have branched off. Some would have kept going west into Shumlaka, where they was talking about in these mountain regions in Cameroon. But they would have been also dominated by the Lupaban people who are a middle Stone Age culture. The Tyrian, these are archaic people. But by the time they got down here, they would have had some mix with these Tyrian cultures. Tyrians are middle Stone Age people. Lupiban, they'd even more ancient. They were archaic humans. Even more archaic humans. These Tyrians would have been mixed or hibernated with these Lupiban culture, and they would have been dominant and have a persistent middle Stone Age culture that would have been dominated, even though you did have late Stone Age cultures there, like the Shumlaka people. Was good with the Sosa. Now I'm getting to the article, wiki article. Let me show you, like, even up to I got another part of the map too. Go back to a more a more current date. This part is more like this, like around This right around 16,000, 15,000 BCE. This is a little more current. You got, well, eventually, these East African people would have spread into their, into their more, recent designations. You know what I'm saying? You got the Nilo-Saharan population. These are very, very ancient people. Even a lot of the other groups that around this region, would have, because these groups is the most basal out of these North African populations. Even before you had Afro-Asiatic and Niger Congo or Niger Godofin, which is right here, still in the east. This is the early Niger Congo languages, or the ancestor Niger Congo languages, before they spread west. They would have lingered around here in the western Sudan, or the western Niger Basin, what they call the Yellow Nile region, or the Wadi Hawar region. Some around 16,000. Some can stretch around 20,000 years ago, sometimes postulated. But they would have, sometime around 20,000 or 14,000 years ago, these people would have migrated through the Green Sahara, and then, migrating at, even all the way up here in Nigeria, they would have been, stretched all up here when it was green, mostly in the southern central Sahara. And as that time, and it became desertous, they would have migrated down in the mix with these persistent Middle Stone Age culture. They would have had these persistent Middle Stone Age cultures. They would have had, like I said, would have had a little bit of late Stone Age culture in them because of the Shumlaka people, which is the ancestor of the Batwa, which you see the Batwa cultural complex right here. But would have been more dominant of a Middle Stone Age culture here, even though they was mixed with some of the Shumlaka late Stone Age cultures. They migrated in through the east, somewhere, beginning around 42,000 and got to Shumlaka around 30,000 BCE. And now we're gonna get into it. Okay, West African hunter-gatherers. Okay, West African hunter-gatherers, sometimes they call them West African foragers, or like I told y'all earlier, West African pygmies. Even though pygmy is a derogatory term, I already say patois, or I just say West African hunter-gatherers. But the colloquial term, what we mean while we say, pygmy, people, short stature people that lived in the forest or dense forest regions. But I'm just showing y'all how complex, the origins really is, because they're not even just one group of people. They're like an amalgamation of different people that, that adapted to these regions. Even inheriting deep archaic, deep ancient human ancestry. From Paleolithic to Middle Stone Age to even late Stone Age populations. A lot of the late Stone Age populations of these people would have been like the B, the haplogroup B carriers, things of that nature. But they, even these populations too, they would have had A00 too, eventually mixing in with these different archaic humans. That's why a lot of them were in that Cameroon region, where you found an African American brother with the A00 haplogroup. Because he had ancestors coming from that Cameroonian region. And also too, like Shumlaka and all that region. That's that region. Later on, is the close region where the Bantu people would have, or the Bantu languages, or the grass field languages of Bantu, which is like Bantoid languages, would have formulated in that region. as these, incoming Niger Congo populations, spreading through, coming up from, the Central Sahara region, going into more wetter woodland savanna and on the edges of the rainforest. Okay, right here, and they say, okay, the West African hunter-gatherers dwelt in West Central Africa earlier than 32,000 BP, and dwelt in West Africa between 16,000 BP to 12,000. See, like that's what I was telling y'all, from like 32 to 30,000, you know what I'm saying, all the way up into the 16,000, they would have been secluded to their Shumlaka region, like these late Stone Age cultures. But they would have been surrounded by even more ancient cultures that was already in that region as well. But they wouldn't have been like the late Stone Age wouldn't have been dominant, wouldn't have been as dominant in West Africa. The archaic late in Middle Stone Age. Only one to say archaic because the Tyrian people wasn't they were archaic, but they wasn't like as archaic, and they would have been mixed with a more archaic people. That's who the Iwo Iliro skull and findings was. And they're gonna talk about that too on here. And they say the earlier than 3200, earlier than 32,000 BP, and dwelt in West Africa between 16,000 BP to 12,000 BP until late as 1,000 BP, or some period of time after 1500 CE. So you still have like in certain areas, they didn't get overlapped like at a quick rate. A lot of them got absorbed by more modern, West African population. Like a lot of the groups that we don't even know what language these people spoke, because even like a lot of people in West Africa just pretty much amalgamated people of different African groups. You know what I'm saying? From different eras and different time periods. Even though the Niger Congo population is dominant, a lot of them people have ancestry from these West African hunter-gatherer people that was already in the region, or traveled in the region at a much earlier time than the Niger Congo population did. And they say West African hunter-gatherers are archaeologically associated with West African microlithic technocomplex. Despite its significance in prehistory of West Africa, the peopling of various parts of Western Africa, from sub-Saharan regions of coastal West Africa and forest of Western Central Africa, often goes overlooked. See, I told you it's the connection that Western Central Africa and West Africa, the forest region. And these people would have been related to the central West African hunter-gatherers too. They just spread it out. So you got different so quote unquote pygmies or patois in East Africa and West Africa. And they got like different, they have different distinctions, because they adapted to their particular regions over time. And they say prior to West African hunter-gatherers, there may have been various peoples, that the Awo Iliru people, possibly Aterians. That's what I was talking about earlier. See the Iwo Iliro skull. And it's an archaeological site, rock shelter, features later Stone Age artifacts from during the late Pliocene, Heliocene transition, which is frequently located in the forest savanna region in Sauron, Nigeria. The site was initially part of with this name by Chief Officer J. Akulu Duke. But basically, you know, even up in this time period, in the late Paleocene, Heliocene, you still had, you know, these hybrid, you know, human, you know what I'm saying, you know, modern mixed archaic humans in that region. Even when you had the, you know, the dominant, you know, dominating, you know, more modern humans still there too, but living along with these people. That's what they saying. But they say prior to the West African hunter-gatherers, there may have been various peoples, Illyro people, possibly Assyrians, who continuously occupied West Africa amid the Middle Stone Age. And in that Middle Stone Age, culture was dominant in West Africa at a point in time, even though you still had these little later Stone Age cultures, ancestors of the Twa people who was in Shumlaka for a long time, and you know, slowly leaking into West Africa around 16,000 years ago, among these, you know, Assyrian mixed archaic humans. And it's a macrolithic using late Middle Stone Age peoples, possibly archaic human admixed or late persistent early modern humans. Iwo Illiru fossils of the late Stone Age, who dwelt in Central Africa, Western Central Africa, and West Africa, were displaced by macrolithic using late Stone Age Africans. And so you see that the African pygmies. That's who these late Stone Age people was. You know, their ants, at first they weren't even really short stature. They became short stature, you know, in these regions, you know, adapting to these regions, and possibly some of these archaic humans could have been already short stature anyway in these forests. They could have been mixing with them people too. But all of the Batwa people ain't as short as you have some groups more shorter than others. Some that's not as short. And then even some of the Bantu and some of the Ubangian populations who migrated in the regions later, who mixed with some of these Batwa people and made hybrid groups, would have been, you know, slightly short too, or became shorter just by, you know, adapting to those regions. And they say, were replaced by macrolithic using late Stone Age Africans, and they say they were non-archaic human admixed late Stone Age Shumlaka fossil dated between 7,000 BP to 3,000 BP, as they migrated from Central Africa to Western Central Africa into West Africa. Earlier than 32,000 BP or by 30,000 BP, late Stone Age West African hunter-gatherers were dwelling in the forests of Western Central Africa. Earlier than 32,000 BP at Demerit in Shumlaka, 12,000 BP at MB Krator. Between 16,000 BP to 12,000 BP, late Stone Age West Africans began dwelling in eastern and central forest regions, Ghana, central coast, in Nigeria, between 18,000 and 13,000 at the Timid West Ascrochronia in the southern region of Ghana. And these still the pig, you know, the ancestors of the pygmies. These not even Niger Congo people yet in these Ghana, Ivory Coast area, because a lot of these people, they, you know, in Shumlaka, they took a northern, they was migrating up north before the Central Saharan, you know, Proto-Niger Congo or Niger Godofin people even was migrating to those regions. And they say, between 18,000 BP to 13,000 BP at Timid West Kana in the southern region of Ghana, 13,050 Benjerville in the southern region of Ivory Coast, 11,000 and 200 at Iwo Ilero in Nigeria of West Africa. And West African hunter-gatherers resided at the Nigerian sites of Iwo Ilero and Rope, at the Ivorian site of Benjerville, at the Cameroonian site of Shumlaka, at the Malayan site at Onjogo, and the Senegalese site of Watandi and Tambora. And they say prior to the Haliocene period, prior to this Haliocene era, interaction between the West African migrating from the Sahara and West African hunter-gatherers. See, don't get too confused. And the West Africans migrating from the Sahara, these would have been the Proto-Niger-Congo speakers, like the more modern, West Africans. And and West African hunter-gatherers of the savanna and forest regions were limited, as evidenced by West African hunter-gatherers microculture continued. See, they would have been limited at first, and then eventually, they became more and more integrated. You know what I'm saying? See, it's like prior to the Haliocene era, interactions between West African migrating from the Sahara and West African hunter-gatherers of the savanna forest regions were limited. See, they were interactive in certain regions, and they were interactive on a seasonal level at first. You know what I'm saying? When West Africans from the Central Sahara started migrating more and becoming more settled in their region, they started mixing more with the West African hunter-gatherers. And some of that happened in that area, Dortetchet, what I talked about last week. And they say, as evidence by West African hunter-gatherer macrolithic cultural continuity, West African hunter-gatherers likely were the sole occupants of the savanna and forest regions of West Africa. Unlike Central African hunter-gatherers, who dwelt in more secluded areas in the forests of Central Africa, these are their relatives, the people that the Shumlaka people or the Mutapi people who stayed in the Congo regions and didn't migrated more north like the Shumlaka people did. Which these were these are the Central African hunter-gatherers, who are the close cousins akin to the West African hunter-gatherers. You know what I'm saying? Who dwell in more secluded areas in the forests of Central Africa. West African hunter-gatherers likely dwelt in more open areas of West Africa, and that explains a lot too, because like the East African Twa are actually like more shorter than the West African Twa, and that makes a lot of sense because they live in more denser, secluded areas. And the ones in the West Africa lived in more, stretched out grassland savanna regions. And it's a migration of the Saharian people. And it's a migrations of the Saharian people south of the Sahelian regions resulted in seasonal interaction and gradual absorption of West African hunter-gatherers. And when they saying these migrations of Saharian, when you see the Saharian people, These Saharian people, like I said, are proto-Niger Congo people, also with a little bit of Nilo-Saharan as well, because in the Saharan region, a lot of the Niger Congo people and the West Sahelian population of the Saharian groups who are Nilo-Saharan population would have been, neighbors with each other, or had some cultural entanglement to a certain degree. Like when the Proto-Mindi people, when they migrated into Dortechet areas or some of these Proto-Niger Congo people migrating to West Africa, they had a little bit of Nilo-Saharians mixed in them already, before they even got there, being, intermixing, intermarrying, in their regions. Like, like West African Niger, like the people that would have later on became the Songhai, who are also Nilo-Saharan, the Kanembu, like, people of that nature, like the Saharian or the Sahelian people. These would have been, West African Nilo-Saharan cousins to people of Sudan, the Nilo-Saharans of Sudan that led the people that became the Nubians and all that shit later. But the other people, these particular Nilo-Saharans, they took a western route and became, interacted with, different people and different groups. And they say, some water real quick. Okay, and they say after having persisted, where was it? Okay, I was right here. Say migration of the Saharan people south of the Sahelian region resulted in seasonal interaction and gradual absorption of West African hunter-gatherers who primarily dwelt in the savannas and forests of West Africa. After having persisted as late as 1000 BP, or some period of time after 1500 CE, remaining West African hunter-gatherers, many of whom dwelt in four savanna regions, were ultimately accumulated and admixed into larger groups of West African agriculturalists, akin to migrating Bantu-speaking agriculturalists and their encounters with the Central African hunter-gatherers. And that's kind of deep right there, because the ancestors of the Bantu people would have been the West African agriculturalists. These Niger Congo people, because Bantu is a sub branch of Niger Congo. It's a sub branch of a sub branch of a sub branch, of the Niger Congo family. And these West African agriculturalists, like they're saying, gradually, mixing with these West African hunter-gatherers who already are akin to the Central African hunter-gatherers anyway, because they all split up. So these West African agriculturalists would have already had some type of hunter-gatherer admixture before before becoming the Bantu, and the Bantu migrating, encountering these other Central African hunter-gatherers. So the Bantus already would have had some type of West African, some type of Batwa mixture, or early hunter-gatherer mixture, even before mixing with the Central African hunter-gatherer that was in the deeper or more central Congo region. That's not what I'm talking about, James. When I say East African, I'm talking about particularly East African group. I'm talking about Niger Congo or Niger Godolphin people. You just can't say East African. It's a particular East African group. I ain't talking about no Afro-Asian groups. I'm not talking about no Nilo group. I'm talking about some Nilo groups to a certain degree. Because you did have Nilo-Saharian groups that did travel west. It became their own particular groups. You know, right here, prehistory of the Pliocene. It's gonna talk about the archaic, you know what I'm saying, the archaic, let's see where I go into. Okay. This goes into the when they talk about the Pliocene, they talking about like you had the archaic hybrids there. That was like the Tyrian groups that was mixed with that was mixed with archaic humans. Let me show y'all the Tyrian population or reconstruction. This ancestor whisperer. It's the Tyrian, the Tyrian population. It's the Tyrian population. Yeah, I put you on timeout, James, because you interrupting the lesson, right? Yeah, this would have been a Tyrian population, Tyrian culture. These people would have been in North Africa even before you had the Iberian Marusian population. Iberian Marusian have a Tyrian, you know what I'm saying, in their genetics as well, though. Because these populations would have mixed, in much northern Africa, these people would have mixed with basal Eurasian populations back migrating in, like people with U6 markers, people that, with that fusion and people becoming Iberian Marusians. And then some of these people would have, migrated south into West Africa and in the mix with archaic humans, like the Lupi-Band culture I talked about earlier. And they would have been mixed, they would have hibernated. These people would have been there mixed with the archaic humans before the late Stone Age ancestors of the Pygmies even migrated to the West. So I'm talking about complexity. I'm not just talking about some, East African mixed with West African. It's complexity to this. You got different levels to it. Like which East African migration are you speaking of? Like you got different East African migrations. You just can't come into the middle of the conversation and then hear what I was talking about earlier. I surely broke that down. Okay, and they say people, they say Middle Stone Age West Africans may have dwelt at Anjogo, Mali, 71,000 BP to 59,000 BP to 28,000 BP. Falime Valley, Senegal, late MIS 5. And that's like that's isotope, that's marine isotope stage 5. And it's at the temperature region between 130,000 to 80,000 years ago. And it's a Timasi, Senegal, 62,000 BP to 25,000. So you get the picture. This is during the Paleocene period where you had a lot of archaic humans. And they say, aside the scant evidence, Middle Stone Age West Africans likely dwelt continuously in West Africa between MS4 and MS2. Let me show you what they mean by the isotope, years and dating. And they say between MS2, which is MS2 is 29,000, 29,000 years ago. It's the last glacial maximum, and MIS4 is 71,000. So they would have been, 71,000 years all the way to 29,000 years ago. At the Middle Stone Age, would have dwelt or continuously dwelt in West Africa, and likely were not present in West Africa before MS5. There's so many nuances, bro. Shout out to my brother Isionic. There's so many, bro. So many nuances to this. It ain't just, this ain't just a checkers game. You know what I'm saying? They make it seem like it's just a checkers game, bro. And it's not that. There's so many layers to this. And they say a mid MIS5, Middle Stone Age West Africans may have migrated across West Sudanian Savannah, continued to reside in the region in West Sudanian Savannah, West African Sahel. In the late Paleocene, Middle Stone Age West Africans began to dwell along parts of the forest and coastal region of West Africa, Timasi, Senegal, and more specifically by at least 61,000 BP. Middle Stone Age West Africans may have began to migrate south of the West Sudanian Savannah, and by at least 25,000 may have began to dwell near the coast of West Africa amid aridation in MS5 in MIS5 and regional change of the climate in MIS4 in the Sahara and the Sahel Look, Aterians may have migrated southward into West Africa by and they say like Bayou, like from what's it, Mauritania? Yeah, that's in Mauritania. Mauritania, Timasi, Senegal, and Lower Senegal. So the Tyrians, they say the Tyrians migrated south into like from that Mauritania into Senegal region. And they intermixed with them loopy bond cultures earlier. Like, let me show y'all what I was talking about from this article what I read earlier from the Christopher Ehret. Map right here. You see the Tyrian cultures. See the Tyrian culture a little bit. You got Tyrian cultures all over here. Even at Nazareth, Qatar culture in Egypt, that would have represented some type of Tyrian culture. Even the Qurmusa. the Bond, these would have been the Eastern Tyrian. Like you'd even had Tyrian type or related cultures in the Middle East at the time period. Because this is go way back. These these would have been dark-skinned human beings. This way before you even had Iberian Marusians up north. Iberian Marusians is like these Tyrians that was up here. You know what I'm saying? You would have had Basal Eurasians migrated into these regions and overlapping these Tyrian cultures in the mix with these Tyrians. But some Tyrians, migrated south and mixed with the Lupiband culture. And they were these hibernated cultures and it became, like I told you earlier, the Iwo Iliro culture. And you had these, these East Africans, because when I told you the dotted line, anything that's dotted line, this is the modern human or the modern African populations before they spread out. Before Khoisan branched off. You see, this the Khoisan migrations here. You know what I'm saying? Before, the Khoisan would have been in these regions, these southern regions of the East Africa. And then you would have had the Hadza and the ancestors of the Pygmies and the Proto-Nilotic. And then from the Proto-Nilotic groups, you would have had the contemporary Nilotic groups branching off from there. And then you would have the Niger-Godolphian and the early Proto-Afrasian groups branching off of these Proto-Nilotic-like groups, becoming their own groups. But even before that, you know what I'm saying, I'm going to take you back to 42,000 with a Matupi cave, where these ancestors of the Pygmies or the Batwa people would have migrated from the east, from the southern route into Shumlaka right here, and stayed in this region until Shumlaka region until about 16,000 to 12,000 BP, and migrated up further north in these regions where persistent Middle Stone Age cultures was more dominant at. And these, they would have lived along here. They would have been mixing with these Lupiband cultures too. They would have been already in these denser forests. You had Lupiband people here in Central Africa. You had some in West Africa too. And these would have been archaic humans that these Batwa branches would have, intermixed with. The ones here, in the East would have became the modern day Eastern Batwa people that we see today. And the ones from Shumlaka would have been the West African, hunter-gatherers, or the West African, quote unquote, Pygmies or Batwa people. I always say the date. The date of this map is 48,000 to 30,000 BCE. You say the dotted line say fully modern humans and later, and in their later Stone Age cultures at 48,000 BCE. Let me get back to the wiki article. And it say 35,000 BP, Middle Stone Age West Africans and West African archaic humans are presumed to have admixed with one another, resulting in the development of the Iwo Iliro people. And when they talk about West Africans, see, when they say Middle Stone Age West Africans, they're talking about basal West Africans. Or when they talk about West African archaic humans, these are not West African hunter-gatherers. Middle Stone Age West African humans would have been Tyrian cultures. And then you had West African archaic humans who were just already there. these people would have been akin to the Jebel Jahud, finding that was in Morocco. They would have been related to those groups, the Lupi Bond culture. They all would have been related. But these would have been the Middle Stone Age. West Africans would have been the Tyrian cultures, who were a little bit more on the modern side, more so than the archaic humans. They were more like they still had some archaic features, but they were a little slightly more modern. And they say archaic humans are presumed to have admixed with one another, resulting in the development of Iwo-Iliro people. And they say who may have retained isolated in West Africa and thus distinct from both contemporaneous Africans in the Sahara and from any other African population amid the Trans-Tertiary period between the Pliocene and the Pliocene and the Heliocene. And they say earlier than 32,000 BP or by 30,000 BP, late Stone Age West African hunter-gatherers were likely in the forests of Western Central Africa. And they say earlier than 32,000 BP at Demerit in Shumlaka, 12,000 BP at Mb Crator, and excessively dry Ogalian period occurred, spanning from 20,000 BP to 12,000 BP. By 15,000 BP, the number of settlements made by Middle Stone Age West Africans decreased due to the increasingly humid conditions. Expansions of West African forests and greater the number of settlements made by late Stone Age West African hunter-gatherers. Now, the late Stone Age West African hunter-gatherers would have been the ancestors of the modern day Batwa. In the Middle Stone Age, West Africans would have been the hybrid archaic humans who was already there before the ancestors of the Batwa even got there. There would have been a mix of a Tyrian and archaic humans, like I said earlier. And they say macrolithic using late Stone Age peoples, the possibly archaic human admix, and later persistent early modern humans, Iwo-Iliro fossils of the late Middle Stone Age who dwelt in Central Africa and West Central Africa and late West and West Africa were replaced by macrolith using late Stone Age Africans. Non-archaic human admixed late Stone Age Shumlaka fossils dated between 7,000 BP to 3,000 BP as they migrated from Central Africa to West Central Africa and to West Africa. See, them these Shumlaka Batwa people, they took a northern route, and they was in a lot of these West African areas way before Niger Congo people, migrated and settled in the regions. And they say between 16,000 and 12,000 late Stone Age West Africans began dwelling in eastern and central forest regions of Ghana, Ivory Coast, Nigeria, and between 18,000 and 13,000 BP at Timid West and Aso Krokana in southern region of Ghana, 13,050. And let me go a little bit down. I read some of the early in the overview. They say about 11,000 BP, the late settlement made by Middle Stone Age West Africans and earliest settlement made by late Stone Age West African hunter-gatherers emerged in westernmost region. Falime Valley in Senegal and West Africa. Middle Stone Age West Africans and late Stone Age West African hunter-gatherers probably did not become admixed with one another and were culturally and ecologically distinct from one another. Yeah, they probably, they mixed after at first, but after a while they did. Especially, as they start settling in. And they say the Heliocene, now we're going into the Heliocene period. Let's say between 12,000 to 8,000 BP, West African hunter-gatherers then likely migrated from coastal West Africa towards north in West Africa, as far as Mali, Burkina Faso, and Mauritania. They was in Dortetchet. So some of these Batwa, early Batwa, Shumlaka humans, West African late Stone Age populations was all the way up in Mauritania. And they say, as evidenced by their microlithic industries, quartz and stone and sandstones. Amid the early period of the Heliocene, the West African hunter-gatherers may have had Sahelian stone industries from Central and Niger, which derive either from distinct sub-Saharan African stone tradition or from Shumlaka stone tradition of Cameroon. And they say, in the 10th millennium BCE, Niger Congo speakers developed pyrotechnology and employed substance strategies at Onjogo, Mali. Because at least around 12,000, I say at least around 12,000, 10,000, this is what the proto Niger Cadolfian or the proto Niger Congo population start migrating into these regions and settling. They was bringing in, the iron, pyrotechnology, the brass, iron smelting technology with the iron and all that. And it said prior 9400 BCE, Niger Congo speakers independently created and used matured ceramic technology, pottery pots, and contained the cooked grains of Victoria Exilius, which is fundy, which is it's like a fonio, basically fonio, kind of like some type of rice or grass, or fonio millet. They call it hungry grass. Hungry rice in West Africa. And pearl millet. I told y'all earlier, these were like staples. These particular grains were like staples of the Proto-Mindi and some of the Proto-Niger Congo populations as they was migrating from the Central Sahara into West Africa, mixing with these West African hunter-gatherer groups or these late Stone Age groups that was mixed with some of these Middle Stone Age groups that was already in the region. And it's a ethnographically and historically, West African women have been creators of pottery in the most West African ceramic traditions. I mentioned this when they come from Eric. Yeah, but in the Eric book, he used them same sources. He talking about the women, West African women creating the ceramics in the pots. And they say, and their production in ceramics is closely associated with creativity and fertility. Amid the 10th millennium BCE, microlith using West African migrants into and dwelt in Onjogo alongside earlier residing West Africans in Onjogo among two existing cultural areas. Earlier residing the West African Onjogo were of a cultural area encompassing the Sahara region. And they say in Africa, microlith using West Africans were of a cultural area encompassing forest region of West Africa. And say following northward expansion from coastal West Africa, refugia, West African hunter-gatherers arrived and began dwelling in Korokali, and Pays Monde, Mali, where they engaged in hunting and fishing. By 4000 BCE, red ochre used to paint pottery, jewelry, and pictographs were developed by West African hunter-gatherers, which may have developed as a result of interaction with populations from lake areas to the northeast. This increased use of the grinding stone and thus cultural development of utilizing vegetation for food. This result in a decreased use of stone projectiles and thus decreased hunting and cultural practices. Them interacting with Niger Congo people, or the people that became modern West Africans later on. And they say by 7000 CE, along the Nyani having been established. And Nyani, that was one of the capitals of Mali. I named my daughter middle name Nyani, after the capital, the early capital of Mali. And they say along with Nyani having been established, Korokali was embedded within the kingdom of Kongagba. And they say West African hunter-gatherers and their ancient cultural traditions may have persisted shortly thereafter as West African hunter-gatherers began fully acclimated, and the Malinke metallurgy and the pottery tradition became predominant. And they say by 4000 BP, interaction between Saharan occupants and the sub-Saharan African hunter-gatherers increased as Saharan occupants increasingly migrated southward into sub-Saharan Africa, West Africa. That show you that peace. What's up with it, Cuban? And that shows that here that the Niger Congo population or Niger Congo language, or the proto Niger Congo language, is not even really a sub-Saharan African language family, or origin, or the Niger Condofian languages, because they migrated from the Central Sahara region. First they first came from Western Sudan, the Western Sudan, migrated into the Green Sahara and back migrated down, south from the Central Sahara into sub-Saharan West Africa. And I heard they said the interaction between these West African hunter-gatherers and these Saharan occupants, which would have been the proto-Niger Congo people, and somewhat of the West, and some of the West Sahelian populations, which was some Nilo-Saharan people who were up north too, who would have had some type of cultural entanglement with these proto-Niger Congo people, because you have a lot of like the people that became the Songhai and some of these West Sahelian Nilo-Saharan groups would have been, they would have been in West Africa or the Central Sahara so long that they would have been intermixing with some of these proto-Niger Congo people because they would have been immediate neighbors in the Central Sahara. And they say, as desertification was underway, West African hunter-gatherers of the Middle Niger were likely the first to encounter southward migrating Saharan occupants. Increased interactions may have resulted in adoption of pottery and polished stone production, which subsequently may have led to these cultural practices being further diffused into other West African hunter-gatherers. Additionally, pastoralism may have been adopted by some West African hunter-gatherers as West African hunter-gatherers of the central Niger became increasingly accumulated and eventually admixed into more numerous surrounding southward migrating Saharan occupants. Some West African hunter-gatherers further south may have continued their hunter-gathering and or basic vegetable cultivation cultures. Like I said earlier, that a lot of these West African hunter-gatherers were still around, you know what I'm saying, up until the CE, you know what I'm saying, time period, like around 1500 CE in certain regions. All of it wasn't absorbed yet. Like it was just a slow, you know what I'm saying, a slow process. Someone was still practicing a lot of these, late Stone Age cultures, or these West African hunter-gatherer cultures, and more so in other regions where they wasn't totally absorbed by the Niger Congo population. Or you might have had somebody who had that they might have spoke Niger Congo languages, but they still, kept on some of their old traditions from the original hunter-gatherers that was already there. Because some of these were intertwined and intermixed and intermarried. Some of the families would have still would have been more so of those cultures. And they say eventually, even these socially organized West African hunter-gatherers were likely accumulated and admixed into more numerous and surrounding West Africans from the Sahara. Now, when they talk about West Africans from the Sahara, they're talking about the proto-Niger Congo people. They're not talking about the West African hunter-gatherers. Two different groups that intermix with each other. And you're wrong, Dr. Bunu, whatever, you're gonna get disqualified for saying some pseudo like that. Egyptians were hunter-gatherers at one point in time. They come from Afro-Asiatic populations, and those Afro-Asiatic populations in those regions, before they start persistently forming at a more consistent time, they were hunter-gatherers. Then the Tufians were hunter-gatherers. How about that? And they were early Afro-Asiatic people. And those grain collecting populations, they were collecting wild grain at first. Only hunter-gatherers collect wild grain. Why they collecting wild grain if it's not domesticated? They're hunter-gatherers. You don't know what you're talking about. A lot of y'all Middle Easterners be uneducated any damn way. And not to slang shot on, my people, my Middle Eastern that do, but some of these dudes that be coming on these channels, they be pseudo and they be miseducated. And anyway, let me get back into my thing. Okay. Okay, now right here, they say, Amid the middle of the Paleocene, West African hunter-gatherers continued to dwell along the rivers and within forests of coastal West Africa. West African hunter-gatherers' stone industries had little presence to the north of West Sudanian Savannah and Sahel boundary, which may indicate that it survived as a type of natural environmental barricade to their greatly mobile hunter-gatherer lifestyle. Increased use of ceramics among West African hunter-gatherers also occurred, as evidenced by ceramics dated to 53 to 70, 5370, either less 100 or more less BP in Basumtra Cave, Ghana, a ceramic date to 4180 in Mumbi crater in Cameroon. While likely still maintaining their hunter-gatherer culture, West African hunter-gatherers may have increasingly utilized local flora, palm oil, and tumors. See, they was starting to get absorbed and get influenced by a lot of these agro-pastoral Niger-Congo populations that was coming in. And remember, I'm gonna do another show on the origins of the Proto-Niger-Congo populations of these Central Saharan groups that came from East Africa, around the Western Sudan regions. I'm gonna do a show on, the origins of the Niger-Congo populations. And then themselves, they were hunter-gatherers too at a point in time in the Central Sahara. They were associated with the Onanian culture. And I'm gonna talk about the Onanian culture on a different podcast. And it was Egyptian tribes. And it's a desertification of the Green Sahara, 4,000 BP and 35 BP, resulted in migration of Saharan pastoralists and agro-pastoralists south of the Sahelian regions. Like I said, these populations would have been Niger-Congo and West Sahelian population. When I say West Sahelian, these would have been Western, the Western Nilo-Saharan groups. And it say consequently, seasonally interacted likely occurred between Saharan pastoralists and agro-pastoralists and West African hunter-gatherers who also practiced agriculture via vegetable cultivation. Sites in Ghana, in Tesoro and Kintambo. Kintambo is a very interesting place too, because they always talk about, let me show you Kintambo. Right here, Kintambo complex. And I'm gonna do a whole show on this too. I'm just giving you a little briefing how it relates to what I'm talking about. And it say Kintambo was established by Saharian agriculturalists who may have been Niger-Congo or Nilo-Saharan speakers, like I was talking about earlier, and were distinct from the early residing Pun foragers between 2500 BCE and 1400 BCE. Like so the Pun foragers, which what they would call in the area of Ghana, modern day Ghana, is like when I click on it, say West African hunter-gatherer. I'm gonna do a whole show on the Kintambo region itself, because it's a very interesting subject in itself. And they say provide an example of group contact in 3500 BP as evidence. Provide an example of group context in 3500 BP as evidence of pun microlith industries that appear in close proximity to Saharan projectile points, beads, stones, and innovations. Stone arm rings and small stone axes and livestock. Rather than Saharan pastoralists and agro-pastoralists replacing West African hunter-gatherers, there apparently was a merger of groups as the Kintampo, as at Kintampo, there was evidence of adaptation of substance conditions of the four savanna regions of West Africa. It's a domestic crops, pearl millet, and large amounts of oil palm and undomesticated flora were availed in rock shelters near the Ghanaian forest savanna mosaic in the southern region of central Ghana. And it's a West African agriculturalists of Kintambo and West African hunter-gatherers of Pumpun were migratory peoples who settled at the sites seasonally for various reasons. For various reasons, palm oil production. This is evidenced by the very way in which flora are situated at the rock shelters. West African hunter-gatherers may have migrated southward near the forest regions or scattered into smaller groups amid arid seasons. Various activities, productions of local resources occur in particular settled areas of the savanna and forest regions. After 4500 BP, desertification may have resulted in Saharan peoples migrated towards the south. The southern part of the forest regions near Kintambo may have been unfit for the substance technique of former domesticated crops of pearl millet from region of northern Africa. As a result, the substance techniques were adapted to the natural environment of the forest region and local crops. Oil palm yams may have been introduced into what was usually formed. Successful adaptation to local ecology seems to have occurred from the southern part of the southern region to the coastal region of West Africa. Right here, next steady going on, talk about the different interactions between different Niger Congo, incoming Niger Congo people and Western Central Africans and the food they ate and the cultivation. I'm not gonna get into all that. I could talk about that, the food, the agriculturalism on its own on another time. And right here, say isolated groups of West African hunter-gatherers may have continually dwelt throughout the region of Pays Monde mountains after the development of metallurgy. West African hunter-gatherers may have even culturally adapted metallurgical practices while still maintaining their ancient stone industry traditions. Let me make some mods real quick. Just made a few more people my mods. There we go. All right, and it say, while still maintaining their ancient stone industrial traditions, cultural continuity via stone industries of isolated West African hunter-gatherers from four savanna regions has been found throughout West Africa as late as the end of the first millennium CE. Kambambe shelter in Sierra Leone had quartz microlith dated to 1190 BP, and in Mali, quartz microliths were dated to 1430 BP. In Yambako, dated to 1020. And it say, after having persisted as late as the end of the first millennium CE or 1000 BP, many of the remaining West African hunter-gatherers were likely ultimately accumulated and admixed into larger groups of West African agriculturalists akin to the migrating Bantu speaking agriculturalists and their encounters with Central African hunter-gatherers. In the central, the Bantu, like just like the West African hunter-gatherer, just like the Niger Congo, when the Bantu ancestors, the proto-Niger Congo speaking populations coming in from the Central Sahara, admixed with these West African hunter-gatherers. And then, later on, these, when these people became the Bantu, the Bantu in return, going into, the Congo or the Central African regions, encountered, more, ancient, humans, which was the Central African hunter-gatherer. And say history. According to early European literature of the 16th CE, West African pygmies dwelt throughout West Africa, Cameroon, and Sierra Leone, and Liberia. In 1500 CE, between the Dogon people entered Bandagoria cliffs, they encountered West African pygmies known as the Telem. I heard they talk about oral traditions about West African hunter-gatherers. They got stories from the Mende, Sanaka, and the Malinke people and the Dogon people had oral traditions of West African pygmies. They call them the Telem. And they even got their own article. The Telem, for the Dogon, even before the Telem, there were groups, Yiban and Dobambolo, that were even more ancient. See, we were even talking about earlier, because the Telem were basically part of the late Stone Age people. And then you had these other people who were like the Tyrians and the even more archaic people that they even have in a oral tradition. And they say water-based economic fishing peoples, the Bozo and the Sorka. These are different Mende people. The Bozo, these different Mende groups. And they say who are reputed to be one of the Niger River's first settlers, recognized that there were even earlier settled people, the Red Men. And they probably call them the Red Men too, because these forest people, these forest people were because they was in the dense forest below. They weren't as dark as like people coming in from the savannah, like the Nilo-Saharians or some of the Niger Congo population. They would have been a little bit more, like a caramel or light brown skin colors. And they say the oral history among numerous modern West Africans is that their ancestors were West African pygmies. Among the Soso in Guinea, West African pygmies were known as Doke. Among the Wolof, West African pygmies were known as Kongrang, who lived in the forest regions. Among the Malinke, and West African pygmies were known as Kumbo and Komdo. among peoples of Liberia. West African pygmies were known as Jina. Among West Africans, Mende of Sierra Leone and Gari of Ivory Coast, there is oral history of their ancestors encountering West African pygmies, giving the varying heights among modern West Africans who dwell within the forest region. This may indicate that the admixing and occurred between West African pygmies and the southern migrated ancestors of modern West Africans, including from the Savannah region. Even the Talim, this is the Talim right here, y'all. The Talim, this was the Dogon and the Mende called some of the early inhabitants. And so the Talim, those who were before us, or we found them in the Dogon language, were the people who inhabited Banda, Dagora, Eskerts, and Mali between 11th and 16th century CE. The Dogon people migrated in the Eskerments regions around 14th century in the rock cells of the Red Cliff clay construction shelter in the bones of the Talim, as well as vestiges of witnessing of their civilization, which existed well before that of the Dogon. This is the land. They built their houses on the sides of cliffs, small, short in stature. They are sometimes wrongly labeled as pygmies. They live by fishing, wildcrafting, hoe farming, animal husbandry, and bow hunting. I learned the animal husbandry and all that from, the Mande, living alongside the Mande and the Dogon. Let me go back. They say languages. We don't know what their language is. It's like the same thing go for the Central African hunter-gatherers. And we don't know. They speak either Bantu, they speak some type of Central Sudanian language, which is a Southern Nilo-Saharan group, or they speak some type of Ubangian language, which is another branch of Niger Congo, other than Bantu that migrated into the Congo regions. And they say West African hunter-gatherers may have spoken a set of presently extinct sub-Saharan African languages. In the northeastern region, Nigeria, Jala, and language Iceland may have been a descendant language from the original sets of languages spoken by West African pygmies. The Jala is isolated, so they say it might be, have some relation to that language. And while here we get into the genetics, ancient DNA. And they say ancient DNA was able to be obtained from two Shumlaka foragers from the early period of the Stone and Metal Age in the 8,000 BP, and the two Shumlaka foragers from the late period of the Stone to Metal Age in 3,000 BPE. And they say mitochondrial DNA and Y chromosomes haplogroups found in ancient Shumlaka foragers were sub-Saharan African haplogroups. Two earlier Shumlaka foragers were haplogroup L0A2A1, probably described throughout the modern African populations, and two later Shumlaka foragers were haplogroup L1C2A1B, described among both modern West and Central African agriculturalists, and hunter-gatherers. That's because this particular branch of L1C was most likely a hybrid branch. You know, when these hunter-gatherers and Bantu populations were mixed in with each other, or even West African populations mixed with each other. I got matter of fact, I got L1C marker, which is old, but my particular L1C go back to Angola and Gabon and that region where you have a lot of Bantu people that mix with Central African hunter-gatherers or Central African pygmies or Twa people in that region. And they say one early assumed Lockeforgia was haplogroup B, which is, haplogroup B is very common among, West African, Central African hunter-gatherers. It's also common among Nilo-Saharians too, and Hadza group, because I remember I told y'all they split in an eastern area, with all them different groups split up at, where I show y'all the dotted lines on the map. And they say one earlier, I'm gonna say where did it go over? They say one earlier Shumlaka-Forger was haplogroup B, and one later Shumlaka-Forger haplogroup B, B2B, which together as macro haplogroup B is described among modern Central African hunter-gatherers, the Baka, Bakola, Bayaka, and the Benzin. Them all different, Batwa groups. And they say the autosomal admixture of the four ancient Shumlaka Forger children was 35% West Central African hunter-gatherer and 65% basal West African, or an admixture composed of modern West Central African hunter-gatherer component, a modern West African component existing locally before 8,000 BP, and a modern East African, West African, it's a East African / West African component, likely from further north in the regions of the Sahara and the Sahara. And that particular, for the Shumlaka, that particular, when they say East African / West African, they're talking about the Niger Congo expansion. You know what I'm saying? The Niger Kaddofian or the Niger Congo people coming from the Western Sudan into West Africa through the Green Sahara. Like they right here say it's from coming in from the Sahel in the Sahara. And probably a little bit of that, they probably postulating with some of the Nilo-Saharan groups too that was in the mix with some of these proto-Niger Congo populations. Like the Bantu expansion, for example. And to say the two earlier Shumlaka forgers from 8,000 BP and two later Shumlaka forgers from 3,000 BP and 5,000 years ago population continuity in the region. Yet modern people of the Cameroon are more closely related to modern West Africans than to ancient Shumlaka forgers. And they say modern Cameroon hunter-gatherers, while partly descended or not largely descended from Shumlaka forgers due to the apparent absence of descent from basal West Africans. And the basal West Africans, y'all, those would be the archaic / Aterian population. And they say by 3,000 to 8,000 BP, two from, no, I'm gonna go back. It's a I read it wrong. It said the Bantu expansion is hypothesized to have originated in a homeland of Bantu-speaking people located around Western Cameroon, a part of which Shumlaka is viewed as being an importance in the early period of this expansion. By 3,000 BP, the Bantu expansion is hypothesized to have already begun, yet the sampled ancient Shumlaka forger, two from 8,000 BP and two from 3,000 BP, show that the most modern Niger-Congo speakers are greatly distinct from the ancient Shumlaka forgers, thus showing that the ancient Shumlaka forgers were not the ancestral source population for the modern Bantu-speaking peoples, because they were new to the area. Those Shumlaka people represent the late Stone Age ancestors of the Pygmies, who I showed y'all earlier on the map, that took that southern central route, you know what I'm saying, going into Uganda and Rwanda, like the what they call it, the Montupi caves. We find, those findings in those regions, and they migrated, into the Shumlaka region, from the east. But this would have been an early, like a 30,000 to 42,000, year old migration before, way before the Niger Congo, populations migrated from the east, from Western Sudan from the east. And they say, while Southern African hunter-gatherers are greatly recognized as being the earliest divergent of modern human group, they talking about the Khoisan. And they say, having diverged from other groups around 250,000 to 2,000 years BP, as a result of sampling of ancient Shumlaka forgers, Central African hunter-gatherers are shown to have likely diverged at a similar time, if not even earlier. They split up, but I showed y'all that earlier on that map. Let me show you that map again. See this route right here? So we took this route. Go down a little bit further. You see the Niger-Godolphin people, the Niger-Congo. Niger-Godolphin will be the parent of Niger-Congo. And they split, the Godolphin languages or the Godolphin speakers would have remained here. Some would have traveled even further east into the Nuba Mountains. And then the Proto-Niger-Congo languages, would have persisted going to the Green Sahara when it was time for it to be inhibited, and then migrated south as it became more dry. Right here you got the Batwa cultural complex. It's where these, the Shumlaka, cultures would have came out of all these cultures. It would have mixed with some of these, Middle Stone Age cultures that was around these regions. You see these Afrasian groups. The Kadan, the Afin, these would have been different Afroasiatic tribes around this region. We don't know the particular names of them, of course, but there would have been some damn tribes over here. Put the let's see right here. I got West Bombatid. This would have been with some of the the West African people, or the West African hunter-gatherer groups would have looked like from Shumlaka. This would have been the East Bombatid, their cousins in Central Africa. The Central African hunter-gatherers. These would have been some of the later mixes when they mixed with some of the Niger Congo people in Central Africa, though. Mr. Sudanese, the incoming Niger Congo populations, coming in from the east would have came in looking like this, mixing with, with the West African hunter-gatherers and Central African hunter-gatherers. I'm gonna put a link in the chat. If anybody wanna ask any questions or join. Put the link in the chat if anybody want to build. If not, I'm gonna shut it down. If not, but I'm gonna wait a minute, see if I can come on the chat. That dude, what's his name? Bonab, he getting there tripping. You don't know what he talking about. You said y'all jumping Dr. Baboon. They're beating him up. Show him like to that Christopher Ehret book. He talked about early development of Egypt. What do you say? One, Christopher Ehret say, let me see something real quick, y'all. You said who were the Pacific people who brought this economy to Egypt around by 15,000 BCE? The linguistic maps of the successive earliest period of Afrasian divergence presents one striking answer. One linguistic expansion is particularly divergent of the Proto-Northern Eretric speakers, who out of the Eretric branch of the family and their inferior moved northward to Egypt via the Red Sea Hills, maps right onto the proposed routes of spread of grain harvesting substance northward out of the Horn of Africa to Egypt. As previously described, two further eras of divergence within the northern Eretric sub-branch followed. The first of these was a diversion of most probably the next couple of thousand years after 15,000 BCE of the North Eritreic language into two daughter languages, Proto-Borphasian and Pre-Proto-Semitic. Pre-Proto-Semitic. And it said the later language being the distinct but different ancestor of Proto-Semitic language, spoken thousands of years later, around 4000 BCE, in the Saharan Palestine, Israel region. One archaeologically attested cultural spread in particular appears to fit in time and place with this linguistic diversion. In the middle 14th millennium BCE, the Mushubian culture, bringing tools and tool-making techniques typically of late Athenian and its immediate successful cultures in Egypt, became established in the Sinai and the Negev. The noted archaeologist of the late Ophir Bar Yosef has argued that this merger of Mushubian with the indigenous geometric Cambrian culture of the Levant that gave rise around 13,000 BCE to the well-studied and well-known Natufian culture of that region. This culture lasted down to the middle 10th millennium BCE and beginning of the agricultural Middle East, and its makers are commonly thought by scholars to have been the cultural forebears of early Semitic speakers. Right here, they say, right here, they say the ancestral Barphasian language, which would have been the continued, would have been continued to been spoken in Egypt, eventually also diverged into two lines of language descent. One gave rise to the common ancestor language of Proto-Chado-Amazigh of the Chadic and Amazigh Berber subgroups of the family, and the second line led down to ancient Egyptian. The initial diversion of the peoples of the Chadio-Amazigh branch westward from Egypt can be proposed to fit in with another era of cultural spread, namely the early Heliocene epoch of around 10,000 years ago. This time of climate shift is wetter conditions allow for the settlement evidence in the archaeology that the period of people of their cultures once again across large parts of the northern and northern central Sahara. The communities who retained in Egypt would have spoken the language that would evolve over the next several millennia into early Egyptian. What's good with it, bro? What's good with it, bro?
Shit, you still live, right?
Yeah, I'm still alive.
Yeah, I'm just waiting to see if I'm gonna be quiet, but if the doctor comes up, I would love to engage with him.
Yeah, he probably ain't gonna come up, bro. He's
Yeah,
scary, man. Them dudes be scary. They talk all that in the chat in the thing. They don't know, but they don't really know what they be talking about either.
yeah, he said like one of the things he said was we don't call ourselves African, we call ourselves Egyptian, right? So then he uses this point of Europeans. First of all, I've heard people from Europe identify saying that they're European, not necessarily the country they come from, right? So
Yeah.
when you typically hear people from other countries, they'll refer to somebody here in the States. They'll say you're an American. They don't say, oh, you're a New Jerseyan, you're a Floridian, you're a Nebraskian. They'll say you're an American, right? So even what's problematic is in within that is that in Arabic, since he's Egyptian, right, and he's not wanting to claim or deal with his blackness, which he's in denial of, right? So in Arabic, if you're somebody from the States, they'll call you Amriki, an American.
Yeah.
You have Afriki, right? There's in particular, like there's people who, let's just say they are Muslim. They may get the nickname something like Afriki or Amriki, denoting that they are African, denoting that they are an American, you know, or other nationalities, you know, like, for example, you have a famous scholar of the past, and his name was Albani. He was called Albani because he was Albanian. So like
Yeah.
his whole statement, it like that statement alone is not holding no weight what he's talking about. But there's people, Northern Africans that I've met. You have Northern Africans that are light as meat, right? They have no issue identifying as Black or African. Then you have the others that will say, no, I'm an Arab, right? To people from Libya in Africa or Tunisia, you know, you have individuals such as them that may say, I'm an Arab. They may denounce the African, right? But then you have those that don't. So at the end of the day, it's kind of like a self-hate. It's a self-hatred thing. It's a thing of you are identifying with your colonizer. You're denying the other thing that composes of you, that makes you, right? But you want to identify with the colonizer. Sort of like the fact he's proud of being Egyptian, right?
Yeah.
Which that's cool, right? But somebody could throw an argument at him and say, well, the Egyptians were never Christian, so you're a Christian. You know, somebody could say, oh, the Egyptians were never Muslim, but you're a Muslim, right? So it's like it's a denial thing. It's denial. It's a self. It is. It boils down to just ignorance, dude. Like, and if you're still there, listen, bro. Like, what you are presently would not be who you are presently had there not been, of course, the Greeks and the Arabs, because your country was invaded and colonized, right? But
Yeah.
overall, you listen, bro. You're in the
It's
States.
still indigenous Egyptians. Like you still
Yeah,
got
like
you still got
he
people.
ever. I'm sorry, bro.
Go ahead, bro. My bad.
No, I was gonna say he's evidently must have never had an incident with the police or gone to the county, because you're gonna be looked at as a stand-in. I don't like saying that word, but
Yeah.
you're gonna be looked. They're not gonna look at you and say, you know, you're not. No, they're gonna look at you as Black. They're gonna look at you like that in this type of society. As much as you
Mm-hmm.
may not, much as you may not want to accept that, you don't like to hear that. As much as you may want to run from it, but it's like, you know, so-called Latinos. It's the same shit.
Mm-hmm.
Denial. It's a denial. It's, you know, like, it is what it is, bro.
I'm trying to find this.
I don't even know what the fuck his problem is. Like, what's the issue? Like, what is it that he's complaining about? Because I came in here late anyhow.
Oh, I had
Because you
no
say,
idea, bro. I can't. This whole show, this whole show was about West Africa.
oh, he
Oh,
would no, he was saying something like to speak about a tribe. He was saying that there was no tribes in Egypt.
it was tribes in Egypt a long time ago. I mean,
Yeah,
Egypt, Egyptians' bases come out of Afro-Asiatic population. So whoever the people that formulated, you know, the states or whatever, these different nomenclatures, they come out of different clans and different tribes. That's why you got so many deities in Egypt, because Afro-Asiatic, their deity system is based off of clanish. You know what I'm saying? It was based on the clan deity or whatever. These clans are tribes.
and we're not Arabs, we're not Greeks, we're not Persians not be considered a tribe of some sort?
I know. It's like Arabs. Arabs got different tribes. You got different Arabic tribes.
Exactly. Exactly.
So why
So
wouldn't
it
so why wouldn't Egyptians have different tribes amongst themselves, like in their area? It's like the people that they related to. Even right here, it say, look, peep this. It's Christopher Eric, African, ancient Africa, a global history to 300 CE. And right here, he say, despite it's a chapter that said considerations for historians reading genetic studies. And he goes in and he say, despite the general view among biologists, these days that the concept of race does not apply to explaining human variation, historians need to be aware that the racialist thinking can still linger unacknowledged even in the work of geneticists. The assertion in the recent such article, for example, that there is no quote unquote no sub-Saharan component in the Egyptian population betrays an unexamined assumption that traces back to races. Early 20th century scholarship that there was something like a quote unquote true Negro type, and that this pure type was represented by a certain coastal West African population. The adjective sub-Saharan Africa in itself is particularly historically loaded, is a loaded term used repeatedly in earlier literature to convey that the kind of racialist belief and attitude to thus terminology very much to be avoided. And then he say, but the Horn of Africa, of course, is also entirely south of the Sahara and is noted in chapter 5. Scholars have already identified a genetic marker of significant population component moving north from that region, spreading not just to Egypt, but beyond there to the Levant, where early Semitic was spoken. And they say, and across North Africa and the Sahara among the Amazigh speakers. So the assertion that there is no sub-Saharan genetic component in Egypt is nonsense. A related problem for the historians is to be aware when reading the works of geneticists is that the geneticists, when trying to correlate genetics with history, is too often have relied on secondary rather than primary sources. So Eric, you killed him right there with his Egyptian source. I ain't want to talk about no Egypt today. Now people want to get beat up.
Yeah, I'm typing something to him in the chat. Matter of fact, the hell with it. Is it okay if I ask him here?
Yeah, you ask, yeah.
Yeah, I'm just, I'm at wit's end with certain things with people. So he made a statement, he just like he's addressing you on something that is like not even subject matter, right? So I'm gonna get off topic here. I just want to see what he's going to say. So he says in here, since we want to where's it at? Where's this little statement he says? All right, okay, so first one is my mom as a social worker in LA County was or is, because my mom as a social worker in LA County, and she was kind of worded that wrong. Anyway, and she was discriminated against her by her black supervisor. She won a lawsuit and won.
Yeah.
That has nothing to do with the statement. That has nothing to do with the whole conversation. All right. Number two, what was the next one he said? Where's it at? Damn. I gotta scroll up a little bit. Sorry about that. Oh, right here he goes. Muhammad was proud of his red hair and white skin. So
No.
again, that's off topic. Like, um, first of all, Mr. Dr. Banoob, my Majnun friend. Now I'm gonna nitpick with you. So produce an ayat, produce a hadith, and produce something from the biography on Muhammad, from the Seal Nectar, produce something from a biography on any of his companions that's been written, and produce something from one of the scholars, past or present, where Muhammad ever said he was proud, keyword is proud, of his red hair and white skin. Or was it he was proud of the tribe he came from? Because he was proud of it, but not prideful in the sense that he was supremacist in his thoughts of he was from the Quraysh people. But you said he was proud of his red hair and white skin. Can you produce any evidence to that, since you want to nitpick and not stick to topic? We can play the not stick to topic game if you want and nitpick. We'll see what he has to say. Because he won't come on stage.
No, he won't. They cowards. They never do. They never do. Trying to say, because of course we wouldn't know what tribes it was back then, but it was, of course, they was tribes. Human beings were tribal, period. Anyway, you got different regions and different nomenclatures, different name nomenclatures in ancient Egypt all throughout the Nile, because you had different tribes or different. I don't even want to say tribes. You had different ethnic groups.
Yeah, it's crazy. So does he come in here frequent, like often when you go live? Does this happen?
No, I think he follow Chief X. I see. You think he'll be on Chief X channel a lot. Be on Chief X channel a lot. He just be in a peanut gallery, riding with like some racist Arab dudes. I don't know what they be on, bro. Because my argument ain't even what their argument is. Like a lot of other people argument is. My argument is straight up science and straight up based on the facts and the information. I don't got no agendas and none of that. I don't teach no blackology, none of that shit.
No, and that's not even that. Look, man, as long as I've known you, that's not your position. That's not Ngozi's position. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's a lot of people's, that's not their position. But at the same time, I don't think, I mean, and I'm not trying to speak for you, but just to put this in there, that I don't think you're not saying like the Egyptians in their quote unquote purity, right? They were black. They, or for lack of a colloquial usage of this term black, right? But I don't think nobody's denying that there, over a period of time in the different era, the dynasties, that other ethnic groups didn't come in and sort of like, the English came and colonized Egypt, different over periods of centuries, there was colonization there. So I don't think nobody's denying anything like that, like anything that
no, they've been mixed. They've been mixed from the beginning, like because they base population is really like East African groups, like like people like the Somali type, the Beja, the Cushitic type groups, like the people that you see in Ethiopia, modern day Ethiopia, like Haile Selassie, them type people. The people been mixed for a long time. First with Basal Eurasians, which were people that would probably look similar to like people from South Asia, Indians, in Amadic, like Amadic groups, because they base population. The oldest Afro-Asians is Amadic population. And then they would have been mixed with these Basal Eurasians. Some of them would have been mixed with Basal Eurasians in the Red Sea region. And then as they went north, they would have started mixing with other groups, from the Levant, regions, coming in from like the Southern Trans-Caucasus areas and all that shit. So the shit layered, over time, so of course, they got some sub-Saharan African component. And then too, they have a mixture of Nilo-Saharians too, just been in their region. I know Egyptian dude, he took a DNA test, he got like 14% Nilo-Saharan ancestry. And he looked like a typical Egyptian, North African looking, mixture, look very, biologically ambiguous,
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So yeah, he ain't gonna come on this channel, man. I ain't want to talk about Egypt. I was thinking with West Africa. We was talking about earlier. I was really talking about the West African hunter gatherers, and their spread and their cultural spread. The West African hunter gatherers before Niger Congo people migrated into West Africa 12,000 years ago, bro. They was always West African hunter gatherers. They was all the way up in Mali in southern Mauritania, migrating, from Shum Laka from Cameroon up north, and then like eventually, the Niger Congo people would have migrated in, as the desert, would have been slowly, desiccating or whatever. And they would have been mixing with some of them people, whatever. And they, them people too would attribute it to, Niger Congo languages that we know today. Because because the people that were migrating there, they would have been proto-Niger Congo. Yeah, it became Niger Congo proper as we know it today, It's the mixture, these incoming, Central Saharan people coming in, mixing with these West African hunter gatherers that was already in the region for a long time.
Why is he calling people? Who are you calling uncle? I don't understand that. He said that twice.
He said
Kawal.
uncle.
Yeah, that means uncle in Arabic. Kawal. Like, why is he saying uncle? I don't understand. I don't know. Uncle, like, are you submitting? Like, you're admitting you're wrong? Is that what you mean by uncle? Like, what are you talking about?
I don't know what he
I don't know, man. I think because he's like, oh, only. It seems like he's implying that, oh, like sarcastically, like only Egyptians can be supremacists, not Arabs or blacks. Like, I don't. Nobody's even saying that, man. Nobody's saying that. Like,
Yeah.
that's not. Uh, I don't know.
Quick. I'm gonna beat him up real quick.
He's what? Egyptians are. I'm driving. Endogamous. Endogamous, saying they don't mix. Do you know how many Egyptians I know that are married to all types of ethnicities? Like, not even on the continent of Africa, not even in the region of North Africa. Like, what is this guy talking about? So Egyptians only stick with Egyptians?
He retarded, bro.
Like, what?
He retarded.
Man, I can't even tell you. I can't even count. Man, I knew a dude that was Mexican and Ecuadorian that was married to an Egyptian. I've met Egyptian men that were married to Black American women, that were married to Trinidadian women, that were married to all types. Like, what is you talking about? Like, that don't even make sense, man.
Yeah, Egyptians was all been mixed up from the beginning. Like you can't deny that. Like that's crazy. They just they're indigenous, but they're indigenous full of mixed motherfuckers. They was in that region. It wasn't just one group in that region. You had Nilo-Saharans, you had Afrasian populations. You know what I'm saying? You had different Afrasian populations. You had the North Eritrea people who the Egyptians came out of. The Egyptians came out of them, the Proto-Semitic come out of them, and the Chadic Amazighian come out of the North Eritrea population. And then you had the Southern Eritrea populations, which is the Cushitic people, who represent the Beja people in the C group, populations, A group in the C group populations. So that was in Lower Nubia, and some in the Red Sea Hills. And then under them, southern of him, in the steeps, in the Sudanic steeps, you had the Nilo-Saharan population. And then you had the in between. You had these groups mixing in between each other. You know what I'm saying? You had cultural entanglement. And we read this. We read this in Maria Gatto, you know what I'm saying, works and stuff like that. That's what the experts saying. So I don't know what the hell this dude's talking about. You can't even read the damn information right. You barely probably can read English. Just uneducated ass. Cause a lot of y'all motherfuckers be uneducated any damn way. You barely can read. Probably got a damn fucking second grade education. Cause your parents didn't allow you to go to school. All you would do was forced to read the fucking Quran.
No, he's a Christian. And now he's saying that Greeks, just like the Egyptians, they don't mix with foreigners. Then he tells me Khawal is gay, right? Maybe, well, so gay.
What the fuck is he talking about?
And I mean, there could be maybe a difference in the Arabic language. I don't know, but I'm very familiar with Khawal, his uncle, right?
Egyptians are different though. I got a homeboy I work with. His name Ibrahim. He's actually Coptic. He don't act nothing like this dude. He understand the real history like we do and everything. He actually Coptic. He's like, yeah. He said you look at the walls. He said look at them. He said they're Africans.
Yeah. Now he's getting into.
He said my ancestors are Africans. He's like, of course I'm mixed. Mixed with different different people or whatever. But his central base, his substratum, his base central substratum is that Afro-Asiatic population, the East African people.
Yeah. Now he's on the Coptic Muslim thing. He's saying Coptic. He's basically saying Muslims mix Coptics don't. I mean, I haven't met every damn Coptic on the planet, so I can't. I'm not gonna say that they don't. You know what I mean? Like,
man, Coptic dude mixed. He crazy.
But
Coptic mixed with Nubians when they went to damn Aswan. The fuck you talking about?
I don't know. Now he's saying Coptics don't mix with other ethnicities, nationalities. Only Muslims do. Whatever. Like, I'm not even gonna get into that religious conversation at all, man. You listen. If you want to follow being a Coptic, knock yourself out. That's your business. Whatever makes you happy, dude.
Yeah, what's the question? They got a question. Juju got a question. What's the question? What's the question, sis?
She said, I thought Afro-Asiatic was just a language phoneme.
It's an ethno language filing. It's a language filing and it's an ethno language filing because these languages belong to a particular language group of people and culture. You know what I'm saying? The language reflects culture, and culture reflects people. So it's an ethno language filing. That's what Christopher Ehret calls it, an ethno language filing. He called all the languages of Africa ethno linguistic groups. which means it belongs to an ethnic group or people.
Wow. Now, listen to this. Coptics are a proud ethno-religious group who practice strict,
Mhm.
endogamy, just like our ancient Egyptian pharaonic ancestors. So, so the ancient Egyptians, the pharaohs, listen, if you believe that some Pharaoh, Nasut, Pharaoh, whatever, never had sex with another ethnicity or nationality, like at some point in time. I'm
He's the
sure
same.
all of
Yeah,
them
he's the
did.
same. He's pseudo.
Yeah, but to say, I never did. Did you hear me, Gullah? Did you hear me say I knew Arabic? Did that come out my mouth?
No.
No, I never. I don't know fluent Arabic at all. Never made that claim. There's just certain things I know, but that has nothing to do with the topic at all, bro. He's generalizing. Everybody's like this, and that's not accurate. That's the problem overall with this whole shit is people just make statements and putting everybody into a group and saying it's just like this. It's only this way, and everybody's like that. Like that's the problem right there. And Gulla's not making any of the. I've never heard Gullah make talking points like that.
No. No. He conflating arguments
Yeah,
with other people he ain't heard or something.
I don't know.
I'm trying to see what it
Whatever.
is when you're talking about languages.
But since he wants to talk about Arabic, I mean, we could have that conversation. The Arabic that's spoken in Egypt is a bastardized Arabic, just like Moroccan Arabic is bastardized because of French influence. Like in for example, in Egypt or most Egyptians when they speak Arabic, they won't say Juma, right? Juma it's a gene, the letter J. They'll say
Yeah.
Guma. There is no G. It wouldn't be Guma. So like there is little things like that, like if it's improper. It's improper Arabic, you know. Um, like Sudanese, Yemenis, Saudis, like they speak really good Arabic. And there's other countries, and it's not and that's not to say that there's not Egyptians, you know, regardless of what their religion is, that they don't speak proper Arabic, that they don't know proper Arabic. I'm not making that argument either, but just overall the Arabic language is very bastardized in Egypt, is all I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Well, Dr. Banoob, I'll tell you who's really big into being proud of not mixing. They're called KKK, skinheads, you know, white supremacist extremists, they're very proud of that stuff too, man. So
Yeah.
I, I maybe you can start a social club with some of those guys over there and brag about how you don't mix in with other people. Like,
Yeah, man. I'm just trying to teach, man.
uh,
These dudes. Hold on, let me see. Okay, I found it. Let me show. Hold on. Let me share this my screen real quick.
Now he questions the book. What about Shango? Dr. Banu, it was nice conversing through you, or conversing to you, should I say. You have a good night, Sean. No, that's what I'm asking.
Look at our show Juju. Ethno-language group. Ethno-linguistic group is a group that unifies both common ethnicity and language. Most ethnic groups share a first language. However, ethno-linguistics is often used to emphasize that the language is a major basis for the ethnic group, especially in regard to its neighbors. A central concept of ethno-linguistic groups is ethno-linguistic validity and ability of the groups of language, of ethnicity and substance themselves. As ethno-linguistic group that lacks such validity is unlikely to survive as a distinct entity. Factors that influence ethno-linguistic validity are diagraphics, institutional control, and status, including language and planning of factors. Yeah.
Ah, boy. Ariel B, what's your question about Shango? Because now you want to argue about semantics of how the name is spelled or pronounced. Like, it's Shango, all right? Shango. Some people spell it how you do. Some people spell it Shango. Some people spell it with a C. Like, you know, what's your question? Man, like, if this is the same person that was on Not a Coincidence's channel, like that's just, you know, what's your question? What about Shango? First, let me ask you this. Are you even initiated into Isheshe or Ifa or Lukami? Are you initiated into any of that stuff? What is your question about Shango? Because now what kills me is just we have people that come on social media that are, you know, they're experts in things that they are not initiated in. It's amazing. But what is your question? There here, okay, Shango with a Z, which is how they spell it in Brazil, Candomblé. What is your question? You're stuck on the spelling of a name. Like, it's really annoying when
Arrow cool. He just asking a question.
Oh.
Yeah, you say yeah.
I'm just about the. Oh, well, look, I apologize to you, sir. But yes, you know, some people spell it different ways. Like, it doesn't take away from Shango.
Yeah, it ain't orthodox because you really just using English, English phonics or English letters to try to make a sounds of a language, the sound that originally didn't have writing anyway.
No, I'm not straight. Who is Six Fingers? Who's Six Finger? Who's this?
I don't know who Six Fingers is.
Ain't that dude an Abo? Ariel B, I apologize. I thought you were me. I apologize. Do you need to be Christian to talk about Christianity? No, you don't have to be. Just like you don't have to be initiated to talk about Orisha. But if there's certain things you start talking about, stay in your lane. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
I'm talking about no ethno language. We know what an ethno linguistics group is. We weren't even talking about that, bro. Like, what are you saying? What you or ain't nobody even come on no ethno religious nothing. We were talking about ethno linguistics group because the question that Juju asked. You bringing up some whole other shit. I don't know your point. You really gonna get kicked off this channel, bro. Because I don't want none of that type of riff-raff on my channel. This a channel where we have high level conversations for real, for real. You will get kicked off this channel for real, bro. You would not be welcome to ever come back ever. I cut you off quick. I cut people off. I don't care. I'm a demon like that. I'll cut you off forever. I don't have to communicate with you at all. I send you straight to hell, erase you out my memory. I'm really like that, bro. Don't be on this channel tripping, none of that, bringing no crazy arguments. We just bringing facts. We reading books. We really got books on here. We really do these. We really reading books. The sister said she practiced Kimbanda.
Mm. Yeah, I was just reading it.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, my understanding as far as the name goes, it just depends on the culture. It depends on the language of the people. You know, just people have different ways of spelling it. You know what I mean? Like, you know, people are aware, you know, in particular in traditional names of Orishas are going to be spelled and or pronounced a certain way. Like, that's totally understood. Um, she asked about the historical precedent about the foundation of Oyo. Um, could you elaborate? Are you saying are you asking if it was allegorical in the sense of Shango and you know, the whole history you'll read, you know, like in Patakis or Odus concerning that, or are you asking if it's literal? Um,
What she mean? Yeah, cause they spell it with an X in Banda. They spell it with an X. Sean, that's like that she was talking about earlier. That's because
yeah.
it's just because you talking about different languages and different, you know, different sound, different dialects and shit like that.
Yeah.
You know, Brazilian, you know, it's Portuguese, so it's gonna be spelled different. Sure, it might be spelled different in French, slightly. You know, whatever however you know can sound, but the X can make the same sound.
Okay, yeah, that's she wants to know how much of the Odu, the Ita, um well, is historical and mythical. I don't have an answer for you on that. I'm gonna be straight honest with you. I don't. To come up with a percentage of how, you know, how much of it's literal, how much of it is allegorical, I wouldn't even comment on that. To, you know, I think what's best in that situation, this is just my opinion, what I would do is I would go to someone um, that is, you know, whether they are Babalao, you know, whether they are an Oriente or a Oba, you know, somebody that is very proficient in the traditions has um that has a very good grasp on the history, because you there's people, you know, they can have titles and stuff and they may not know too much. I'm being honest. but there are people that are so I mean I'm still learning.
Yeah.
I'm none of those things I mentioned. So I'm still learning. Um and I do know that there may be different perspectives on that in the traditions, you know. Um I had that doubt because there's a lot of historical revisionism with some people. Yeah. I mean, even when there's things that could be revised, I mean, this is why it's important to know you know, we still have lineage, we still have that history, we still have what's important of when somebody is in an ile in a house, and knowing the house and knowing eventually, you know, the how that house or that ile came about, all that type of stuff. There are people who have documents on that, and so those that's what you want. You want to get those documents. You want to get a hold of those documents either physically or somebody, you know, that can give them to you, or somebody that can go over the documents with them with you. That's the important thing to try to get, because some people just go with the motions, like, oh, I'm getting initiated, or I received this, I received that, but there's a lot of stuff that they don't know. There's a lot of things they don't understand, and they may be naive and think, you know, like, I don't know, something simple like in Cuba with Osun, right? When you get your Osun, you get it when you get your warriors, and you get this. It's metal, silver. It looks like basically a rooster, right? But that bird was not a rooster in Nigeria. So that bird, and I forget the name of the bird in Nigeria, but that bird's not in Cuba. So the Africans improvised what that bird was with a rooster, right? In symbolism of the Osun.
Yeah,
So
even like even right here, like even in the Brazilian, candomblé, like it got like it's heavy in Ifa. Like it got like it got of course it's like a sister to Santeria, from Cuba, Cuban Ifa or whatever.
yeah,
They even spelled Orishas, with an X.
yeah, yeah. Like there's things in Candomblé that you'll find in traditional, but you won't find. Like I'll give you an example. My head is Odadua, right? You can't be crowned Odadua in Cuba because those secrets and those mysteries of Odadua, of the initiation, not of receiving Odadua, but of initiation, didn't come to Cuba. So
Yeah.
if you want to be crowned Odadua, well, you have an option. You can go to Candomblé if that's what you want to do. I mean, it's wise to consult Ifa on that. And Candomblé, they crown Odadua, just like they crown um Osane, the
Yeah.
Orisha that deals with the herbs. You can receive Osane in Cuba, but they don't crown Osane in Cuba. I don't know if they do that. I'm sure they probably do that in traditional, right? It's possible. I don't see why they wouldn't, right? But you'll see the beads on going over the faces of people, right? I forget the name of that, but you'll see when people are a priest or priestess of a particular Orisha in Brazil, for the regalia, they'll have that. And I think it's awesome, right? And you got that in traditional.
Well, this like her.
That, yes. But that, hold on, let me enlarge it. Um, it's more, from what I'm looking, oh shit. Yes, that. Okay, so that's not in Cuba.
No,
That
that's Brazil.
Yeah, you'll find that in Brazil, and you'll find that in traditional Nigeria. Right. So there's certain differences, and it's just, if things could have been lost, people could have died and took in that information with them because they didn't feel people were worthy to receive certain things. It could have been lost along the way of the voyage, of slavery. it could have been lost people that died that had that information that reached certain places, and certain people went to other places and that information went there.
Yeah. And
So this,
then it's mixed. And then it also is mixing with other African traditions as well. Like that might get a different Bantu tradition from the Congo, like a different some sort of tradition from Angola. You know what I'm saying?
yeah, yeah. It's like they don't in Cuba, they don't crown Olokun. You don't get crowned Olokun.
Yeah.
If it comes out Olokun and you get crowned, then you would get crowned Yemaya. You would
Yeah.
get crowned Yemaya, not Olokun. Like if I was to get crowned, I would get crowned Obatala. I would receive Otadur, but I would be crowned Obatala. Or I have the option of not being crowned Obatala and going straight to getting my second hand Inifa and just receiving my Otadur, but not
Yeah.
being crowned at all. So there's, and there's disagreements with that. You got people who say in Lukami or the Afro-Cuban tradition say, no, that you got to be crowned. You have people say, no, you don't have to be crowned. And you have people say, it's up to you. It's your option. You know what I mean? Like you got, and it depends on the Ile. It depends on the house because every Ile may have different rules and different standards. Like my Ile, I don't have to be crowned Obatala. That's up to me if I want to get crowned Obatala or not.
Yeah.
This, by being crowned, you receive more orishas. So in traditional, you don't receive the multitude or the amount of orishas that you'll receive. That the system doesn't work like that. And as you pointed out with the different ethnic group of Africans, that's why in Cuba, a person gets crowned, there's a variety of orishas that they receive, and they have to learn about those orishas. They have to know the particular odu of that orisha they've received, and there's like a whole thing, a whole bunch of stuff you have to learn. You know what I mean? So it's different. It's only different because of slavery. That's the
Yeah.
only reason all this is different. But it doesn't take away that this is better than that one, and that one's better than this one, and all that. You got people who get into that crap. You know what I'm saying? Like, and it's nonsense. It's at the end of the day, it's to make you a better person. And at the end of the day, it's not about you have to be in it. It's whatever you're doing in life, be good at what you're doing and be a good person. That's all it's about. It's not about you're a Christian. It's not about being a Muslim. It's not about oh, I'm a child of this Orisha, or I'm a Hare Krishna, or I'm whatever. It's whatever. What
Yeah.
works for you, because that may not work for the next person. But just be a good person and respect people. That's it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I might do a series down the line on African, African diaspora religions in the Western Hemisphere.
Mm.
I might do something like that. It's very interesting subject. It kind of beats up the Abos argument. You know what I'm saying?
Man, the apples are weak, bro. The wab, I don't even call them apples, the wabbles. Just pure weak.
Yeah, man.
Weak. That inconsistent ideology. It's all over the place. Vikings coming to Mexico. You know, it's crazy.
You say, oh yeah, I do gotta do a psionics. I gotta do it. I have a Discord. I do gotta get my own Discord or something like that. I gotta figure out how to do that. I don't even know how to make no Discords. Somebody have to help me out to do that. Yeah, I'm going back live again next Saturday. So keep it every Saturday. I'm going. I might
That's
slide a
what's
Friday,
up.
either Saturday or Friday. My cook might slide a Friday every now and then, but mostly, Saturday.
Yeah, I'm because when I get off work, I gotta like wind down. Like sometimes I don't feel like going straight to sleep.
Yeah.
So I'll probably do what am I at? Part 5, whatever, and do 2 videos on that channel I came across. It's really informative.
Yeah. This was the girl, the lady was in the area was talking about Kimbanda. Yeah, it's our the same family.
Yeah.
Very interesting though. I like it break down like that with our religion, African religions, how it, how it evolved in the Americas.
Yeah. Is that Mr. Onk in the room? Is that him?
Oh yeah,
With a
Abdul
different
Warrior,
name?
this big what's good with it, huh?
Okay. Yeah, man, I was wanting to talk to him, man. I watched that video he did, and that dude say cool, man. I don't know what that man's smoking. He's like, oh, it's. Mm-mm.
I don't know what he on. He like I don't
I
know.
think he's just making shit up. To be honest, like, oh
He sound like Edie Amin or something.
yeah,
Yeah. But I'm probably finna shut this down, bro. It's getting late where I'm at, bro. And I'm gonna do this again next Saturday, man. I'm gonna keep it. I'm gonna keep doing the subject on West Africa. People. That's kind of what the people want. Uh, people kind of tired of Egypt. I mean, I could discuss Egypt every here and now and then, of course. But when I do it, I'm gonna do different aspects of it. I'm gonna get into the tribal, all that, like the actual culture. You know what I'm saying? I ain't gonna get into the the norm that everybody else do. But yeah, I'm gonna keep it on West Africa for a minute and get into our culture, and really gonna get into some African American diaspora culture as well.
that's what's
My
up.
channel, and I'm gonna get into maybe some science subject too. We might take a break on that, do some science, some actual science subjects, like especially with dealing with taxonomy, animals, and anthropology and things of that nature. All right, y'all. Peace out, man. Appreciate you building with me tonight, man.
Yeah, man, you helping me stay awake?
All
I
right.
got 2 more hours.
Oh yeah. All
All right,
right,
bro.
y'all. All right, peace.
Peace.